The Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Starving Artist Brewing. Starving Artist Brewing may be a small speck on Michigan's beer map, but they say big things come in small packages. A brewery who really puts their money where their mouth is, supporting underground artists far and wide. Making delicious beers with the simple belief that you should judge beer, not people. Brutally Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at Rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Brutally Speaking podcast. I'm your host, John, and this episode's guest is Andy Marsh, guitarist for Thy Art Is Murder. They have a new album coming out on September 15th via Human Warfare Records called Godlike. It's been funny. I've actually been trying to get someone from Thy Art Is Murder on for quite a while, and it just so happened it finally was time to have someone from the show on. And it's been kind of an interesting last few weeks for me over here, in the sense that through doing this show and through kind of posting when I have someone, like when the interview's done, the chat is done, I'll post about it on Twitter and, on some of the other socials, or I'll share a screenshot. And I'm just, honestly trying to get people excited about episodes that are coming up. Maybe drum up some people if they, haven't heard the podcast. Maybe they'll see the thing if someone shares it or retweets it or whatever. And it's been a thing where, I posted that I was going to be chatting, I think, with Nick Brooks, that I was listening to an A Dies Today song, and, people were like, holy shit, the Billie Eilish thing happened. And so I had a handful of people reach out to me, and they were just like, it's wild that you're going to be the first person to talk to them since this thing happened, and could be, a moment where it gets picked up by somebody, I don't know. And in doing this show and kind of being a part of these things, it's been interesting to kind of be adjacent to a bigger story than just the conversation that I have with somebody from a band. And, I had posted I had done this one, I think about 2 weeks ago, as of when I'm recording this intro. And today, I was made aware of the fact that I guess Thy Art's frontman CJ shared an Instagram story of something, and I quickly perused it, but I kind of got the gist of it, didn't really give a fuck, honestly, because it has nothing to do with my conversation with Andy. We did this before that was a thing, but it gets interesting how people will sort of correlate what I do to having some sort of connection to these people. This show is kind of, I don't want to say no stranger to controversy, but there's been some people on the show that I guess have later been, I'm thinking of Zach Deere from Expire Stone, the allegations put out against him about, having issues with women, being, aggressive toward them or whatever. I'm not discrediting what those people went through, but it's crazy that people will leave comments on the YouTube version of the video, or will send me emails or a DM or something and just tell me that I'm terrible for aligning with these people. And the thing that gets kind of interesting about this is, a lot of times, in some of these cases, I'll have these episodes for years, and then something, a band gets canceled, or I don't know, something happens, and then everyone just assumes that I have a direct tap to them, that they're going to read the comment on my video or our chat, which I would say outside of a few where they're my friends and I'm sharing positive things, they're probably never going to know. But it's just wild to know that something that I do for the love of just connecting with people, trying to learn more about how people make their art, the people behind it, the human interactions of just having a conversation with somebody, and then kind of being pulled into the bullshit of it all is kind of wild. It's definitely not something I ever thought would be a thing when doing this. And like I said, just to see people commenting and all of this kind of stuff or reaching out to me, it's absolutely wild. I think like one of the bigger ones was thinking about it was kind of the Lorna Shore ep with Adam, talking about, ironically enough, with a different CJ, their old vocalist and the shit he was going through at the time. And, just kind of the bad circumstance of like, putting out a record that everyone seemed to be really excited about. And then, the wind kind of being taken out of their sails. But obviously that band has moved forward. They have done incredible things since. I think it was a helpful motivator for them. And I guess that's really kind of the thing I've been thinking about quite a bit, like the last few hours since getting the few messages of people knowing that this was an episode coming is, I'm not saying that I condone how anyone feels or what they say. Like I don't control anyone, but I do think it's interesting to think about how we live in this world where everyone's so quick to make a decision. And if it doesn't fit their narrative or if it offends them or whatever, then the other person just has to pay like this ultimate penalty. And I was sort of kind of reminded of it again last night when I was recording an episode of what will be a new podcast I'm doing with some friends called The Bar. We're about 5 episodes into the first season right now. I think we're going to do another 5 or 6 or 7, somewhere in there. And then we'll probably drop that soonish. But it was the thing where we happened to be talking about like the existence of people, like a civilization. Mankind is actually the word I said. And then I prefaced, and I don't mean all men. I mean, when I say that, I'm not trying to be sexist. I mean mankind as in, just that's what we called it. And one of my other co-hosts was like, it sucks that you had to put a preface on that. And I was like, in this day and age, it's just better to be safe than sorry. But I do think it gets kind of hard when you're trying to just speak your opinions and your ideas, and you're trying to work your way through something and just learn as a person, and have to kind of walk on eggshells to make sure that what you're saying showcases your intent as well as your thought process, and showing that you don't necessarily mean to be mean, but maybe like I almost feel like at this day and age, like we can't even call out something for being like kind of as dumb as it may seem, like where it's like, here's the thing, and we can probably universally agree that it's fucking stupid, but can't say that anymore because we might hurt someone's feelings, and now it's a whole other issue for whatever reason. So it's I guess this is all to say it's very hard to kind of navigate life sometimes and to try to be a growing person who has questions and wants to vocalize things. And having the platforms that we all literally do, the exact same platforms of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever the fuck it's called now, TikTok, all of the threads, whatever else is coming. I mean, there's all the other sub versions of things that I'm sure are more one political leaning versus the other, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, it just is crazy that we all try to go onto these things and just voice our own opinions and try to learn and ask questions. And obviously there's a grain of salt with this where it's tough to say that, someone should be able to have the same platform where they just spew fucking hate and horrible shit. Actually, I'm in a very funny way. I just was scrolling through Facebook, grabbing all the social media stuff for the show notes and so forth. And I was clicking through, saw Guns N' Roses putting out a new song, Lauryn Hill and the Fugees are touring. Some of my friends got his shit stolen on tour. And then I just see this like ad of like a dick going into a butt and like a woman sucking some dick, and it's like dick pills. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I can't believe this is on here. I just laughed about it because it's funny to me, like how shocking it was just to see normal shit on Facebook and then that. But it's a thing where like I just hit it after that, so like it doesn't pop up anymore, at least on my feed. And like I just moved on. But like I could see like people, I guess, don't find humor in that. Or more to the point, if something isn't what you want to see, you just move past it. And I think that's something that I don't know if it's a thing generationally that's kind of starting to go away, where we're just not able to have that common sense. Like if something offends you, you got to write a fucking essay on something. If someone is bothering you, you'll seek them out to piss them off too. I mean, it's almost like everyone just pokes the fucking hornet's nest anymore. I just grew up in a day and age, I guess, where it's like if it wasn't for you, you just move on and that's it. Didn't necessarily mean to go on this like long-winded tangent, but like I said, doing this podcast for like 7+ years now, it is wild how people will associate me with something going on with a band, even though I have nothing to do with it. And so I guess on the one hand, if that's something you do, please stop, because I don't care, and I have nothing to do with it. If you comment on something, which I could see someone commenting below on the YouTube version or whatever, like, shut the fuck up and here's where the interview starts, go ahead and do that. It'll probably be about, at this point, 10 minutes in, maybe 15 with all the intro stuff in front of it. But all that said, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's get into my conversation with Andy, and I'll talk to you on the other side of it. Well, I guess first off, having had the record for a handful of days now, it's really, really, really fucking good.
Thank you.
I usually don't really talk much about the actual thing because I feel like it kind of dates the conversation, and I kind of want them to be more standalone and kind of timeless, for lack of a better term. Mm-hmm. But there was something in the press release that really intrigued me, and I don't know if it's like therapy brain when I see it. I'm like, ooh, that's a very therapy type thing to notice. But you had said that you and Sean hadn't picked up your guitars for 2 years, that it was deliberate, the muscle memory. When we came back, it freed up everything. The hands went to different places than they were used to going. It was easier to get outside of the box of Thy Art is Murder. We tried to explore new dimensions. It's still within a tight paradigm, but we went into some new places. And to me, when I read that, I was just like, I think it takes knowing yourself in a completely different facet than I think most people are willing to understand that I don't want to call it a rut, but that something needs to change. And so to me, it felt very adult and grown up that you would have that mindset to know that maybe to go forward, you kind of have to put something down and kind of remain in the now, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people try to make change through activity, and sometimes inactivity is actually what's required. We don't try to make too many active choices in our career. A lot of people like making choices. They like decision making. They like to feel justified. I think every time you make a choice is an opportunity to make a mistake. So we focus on very few choices and making sure that we make the right move. I think having some time away is an opportunity that we won't ever have again in our career for such a long time. So we took it.
What was the process like for you, speaking to you, what was the process like to kind of make that note to yourself that, like, I need to step away from this? What were other things that you focused on instead? And how do you think those things maybe came into your playing for this new record, or in general?
I played video games for 2 years. It was awesome.
What games did you play?
Warzone, all day, every day. It was sick. So I'm not going to complain about it. I know that it was a pretty brutal time, like personally and for a lot of other people, but you get dealt the hand that you do and you make the best of it. I think also, though, it does that's one of the biggest parts of this record is the time away. To make something feel inspired, you have to go and live your life and see a few things that inspire you and do a few things as well. Like, we've gone for the last 13 years from tour to tour to tour to new album to tour to tour to tour to new album on these 2-year timelines, which is absolutely nuts. So getting a break that's as long as an entire album cycle is a nice opportunity to get away, live your life, hang out with the band, but not through obligation of being on tour, and get to know each other a bit better, get to know yourself a bit better, and also spend time thinking about how you'd like to craft the new record, as opposed to being in there. You've got 4 weeks from this tour and then the new album's going to start rolling out. It gives you an opportunity to kind of sit down and proactively think about a few stylistic choices.
I think what's interesting about the pandemic time of, everyone kind of getting the ability of, for the most part, everyone getting the ability to have kind of a hard reset is, especially when it comes to bands and musicians and so forth, because it's a little bit easier to kind of make this correlation. But, there's the old saying, you have a lifetime to make that first record, because no one outside of your local scene really kind of knows who you are or what you're doing. And it's the sophomore album that everyone's like, well, do you either continue and have success, or is it the sophomore slump where it's like, oh, maybe that first record was kind of the anomaly? And I feel like everyone that's kind of recorded or done something now post-pandemic, if it wasn't already recorded right before it happened and everyone just sat on it, it's interesting to see how people have taken that opportunity to almost kind of, I don't want to say reinvent, but reintroduce yourselves now and kind of be like, this is who I am now. And it's almost like getting a second bite at that first opportunity again to get, new listens, new ears and so forth. And I feel like more often than not, everyone that I've talked to on this show really took that opportunity for what it was worth and really like kind of shot for the brass ring on it.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. We didn't really do too much. We still got together last year and put the record together. It was less about reintroducing ourselves to fans and more about, I don't want to say taking chances. We don't really feel like we're taking chances. We generally like what we do and we know that it's good, at least to us. But just to make a record that we felt really happy with, and we didn't have these scheduling constraints put upon us, we were just like, all right, let's just make something. Let's go for it. Let's see what we can do.
I think that the thing that was interesting to me about the record, from what I could gather from, because a lot of these press releases we don't get the lyrics and so forth, so it's like all you kind of get is sort of the bio that comes with the presser and so forth. And it seemed to me when listening to it, especially maybe it's because of the album title and like the first like couple tracks, it kind of just feels like there's more of a sense of like, I mean, calling an album Godlike, it almost kind of it evokes like, we always kind of assume that we are sort of the creator of everything that happens around us. We are sort of our own, godlike creature in our own journeys and so forth. But even kind of going down like, and I'm probably going to get the name of the song title incorrect, but like, sorry, let me pull it up real quick. Was it Kersies? I'm not really
sure. Track 4, yep.
Okay. It sounded to me like what little bit I was able to dig up, it's sort of based on a mythological person, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's an ancient Greek spirit who was responsible for consuming the dead of war and couldn't actually engage in combat, so they could, go around and tell people, like, go and start a fight with that guy so I can eat you. Which, is just pretty metaphorical for a lot of people that benefit from conflict nowadays that are behind the scenes, they're not out on the battlefield.
I think for me, and again, not, mythology was kind of a thing I was big into in school, but it's always interesting to kind of think about creationism and like, the story of mythology and how, there's the hero's tale and, a lot of the fallacy of man getting in his own way a lot of times and causing destruction on a worldwide, structure and so forth. And it was just kind of interesting listening to this record to kind of think about that. And I know you maybe don't have much to do with the lyrics or the themes. That might be more CJ.
I have everything to do with the lyrics.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
So to me, it was just kind of interesting to kind of think about that in correlation to what we all just kind of went through, and how much of it is sort of I don't want to say like biographical, but like, again, taking stock of yourself, taking stock of what's around. And like I said, after going to therapy, it's a thing where I've learned to be more present in what I'm dealing with, focus on the now. How do I handle these problems? And in turn, it's also made me a lot more aware of things that are happening around me, like being more empathic to people, understanding things and kind of taking it all in and making better informed decisions and so forth, or just seeing things from another person's perspective. So listening to the record, I kind of just really, and this might just be my own shit, but it's like I kind of kept getting that where I'm like, this feels like a record that's trying to talk about, I guess, sort of the plight of oneself, and that we need to grow and kind of be better. I don't know. It's weird that like that's the thing I just kept grabbing when I kept listening to the record. Yeah, it's got slamming riffs and it's awesome, and I enjoyed listening to it with the windows down on the nice summer days that we've had the last couple of days here in Michigan. But as I kept listening to it and thinking about what is it making me feel, that I feel like those feelings and the things that are being evoked musically and lyrically, from what I could gather, I don't feel like they were just kind of, you're talking about like we don't really make big choices. I feel like these are big choices, whether they're subconscious or not, personally.
Big choices in terms of the record, or
I think, and that's what I was trying to land on this whole, like, today, knowing that we're going to talk, is I just feel, I feel like you guys are hitting on something that I think maybe, I don't know. I just feel like there's a bigger message that it's going to take a lot of listens to kind of really kind of break through everything, and that there's something more important that you guys are saying on this record maybe than you had previously.
Nothing too dramatic. I mean, it's very introspective, the record. It wasn't until the end of it that I kind of realized how affected I was by the couple of years off, that a lot of isolation, a lot of depressive ideas, a lot of dark places for a lot of people, a lot of death, a lot of loss, a lot of grief. The title Godlike just came around through this idea of true love being eternal, and it connects the living to the dead. This pain is like the connection between things that aren't around anymore that used to be, and as long as that feeling is real, then it makes the other thing kind of real, and provides this immortality, which is godlike. The other like kind of play on the word is, I'm not a religious person, but if you had to like apply Christianity or Abrahamic religion to yourself as a sort of spirituality, it's very common knowledge, this idea of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. The Father being like the idealistic version of yourself or the future self, the Son being the past, and the Holy Spirit being like you in the present on your journey from, to becoming a better person or a more ascended person.
I find it interesting sort of being in the same boat as I would say you, where it's like I'm not a very religious person, but it is interesting that a lot of times, and again, speaking for myself, where you read some of these things, like it's kind of hard not to in this day and age when so many people try to use these words, these teachings, whatever, to, I guess, weaponize the words and the meaning that are contained within these to put others down or oppress them. And to me, I always feel like it's like, I feel like you're missing the point of this. The thing was to love everybody and be compassionate, and to, all these, to make the hardships of life worth it in the end for an afterlife, to be reunited with everybody and so forth. That I always feel like it, like I said, it gets weaponized. So it's interesting that as someone who also doesn't believe either and doesn't have a set of like religion or anything, I think I've always said a good set of morals will actually probably steer you on a pretty good path. Oh yeah. That I think it's just interesting. Like I said, just listening to this, I feel like I said, I'm picking up on something, and I didn't know how much of it I'm just throwing in there, and like I'm like, oh, this is something I'm resonating with, or how much is actually in it that I'm picking up on upon the first couple of listens, and that it's something I think that needed to come out of all of you collectively.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really nice thing to hear that it's resonating with you. Like, that's why we make it. Obviously, it strikes a chord with yourself when you're making songs like this and kind of drawing from dark places to bring emotive lyrics or landscapes or soundscapes to the front. We also tried later in our career now to deploy more metaphors to make sure that the meaning of the song is still open to interpretation from a lot of people. It doesn't necessarily have to be verbatim what I meant for you to take away from it. Although sometimes people do understand it, you know.
I always think that's the interesting thing, you know, having listened to so much music, watched so many like documentaries on bands and so forth, you know, the saying that it's like, I made it for what it needed to be for me, but once it's out, it's no longer mine. It's everyone's at that point, and it becomes this whole other animal at that point. And I feel like that's got to be an interesting thing to just kind of go through whatever made you come out with this music, these lyrics, whatever, and then to kind of just see how it resonates with everyone else, and to hear, especially to hear like, oh, this song's about this, and you're like, I mean, no, it's not, but sure, absolutely it is. If that's what it means to you, what are some more interesting things over the years of you know, doing meet and greets and stuff where people have reinterpreted something that you're like, that is like a 180 from where the inspiration for this came from?
That happens more than would be ideal, but again, you know, like, we're not kind of selfish. Like, the biggest enjoyment for us is making the album, and once we've made it, I can't go around like fucking Santa Claus to everyone's house and pop down the chimney and be like, you're listening to it wrong. Like, that's not my deal. Like, you can listen to it backwards, you can shit on it, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Like, I don't care. I've had my say, and it's on the album, so now it's up to everyone else.
I guess like a fun thing, because typically by the time I get to talk to a lot of people, like the record's already out or it's been out for a while, because I usually like to do these like off cycle. But I mean, like at this point, like there are a couple singles out at this point. Some music videos have been out. I think the first one came out like about a month ago, literally, and the other one about a week and a half ago, if memory serves.
No,
4 weeks. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking actually, because I've gotten 2 press releases for you for the Live in Melbourne. Yeah, 4 weeks ago for the one, and then the first track off of Live in Melbourne, I think just came out a couple. Ago. So you got your like dual press releases right now. In my inbox. So that's what I'm thinking of. But I was going to say, like, it's got to be fun, because I feel like that was something when seeing the video for how do you say it? Pronounce it again correctly? Karis?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I don't like saying words if I don't know how to say them correctly. I'd rather just someone say it correctly for me. But it's one of those things, like even watching the music video for that recently, I was like, it looked like it was fun to kind of carry over sort of the narrative of the song, but also just kind of doing something that, I mean, it's, now that you say like you played a bunch of Warzone, it's kind of like the ending part of the band part of it sort of made a lot more sense as to like where that came from, and probably was a lot of fun to just kind of do something more cinematic in presentation. Yeah,
I mean, we titled a tour after playing Warzone last year. The Back from the Gulag tour was pretty fun. Trent from After the Burial and I played a little bit of Warzone together. He lives in the States, I'm down in Australia, so we're like, oh, if we're going to do a tour together, we got to make it about Warzone. And then coming in the new record, obviously lyrically and everything, it has nothing to do with Warzone, but you know, I thought maybe we could get a couple of guns in there or something and make it exciting. We never really been a big music video band. Like, we haven't done many over the years, and when we have, we've kind of just treated it like an afterthought. We're like, we don't really give a shit about music videos. Like, who cares? This album, we were like, let's put a conscious effort into making, you know, good high quality music videos and see what adjustment that makes in the trajectory of the band. Does it make the band bigger? Does it make people like the songs more? Do they think it's cool? Who knows? Maybe it makes absolutely no difference, and I just threw a whole bunch of money down the drain.
You know, it kind of speaking to the choir on that, because I feel like I talk a lot on this show about, when you started off being in a band, or when I started doing this, it's like you do it just for the want and the desire to do something and to be creative in whatever capacity that looks like. And then eventually it becomes sort of this thing where it's like, okay, this is kind of getting some momentum. It's getting traction. I need to be more cognizant of treating it differently than where I started. And it becomes, you got to kind of become more business minded and understand like different things matter, hashtags and where you're putting things and algorithms and all that kind of stuff. Mainly from the band perspective, it's a lot more of finances and, getting more into the business side of running a band. And it makes me want, and, I'd be interested to talk to you, down the road further and be like, was it worth it? Did you notice a difference in anything? Did people connect to the album more because you put more into your presentation and so forth, music and the music video aspect? Because to me, I feel like at the end of the day, I would probably be more inclined to be like what I imagine most bands are. If it doesn't get them to listen to the song and it doesn't get them to the concert, I don't fucking care. It's just a detraction and it's a waste of money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit of an old man, and I always tell young bands, it's pretty common these days that younger bands will spend more on making music videos than they will on the actual album recording, which is insane to me. And so my little thing that I will tell these younger bands is like, they don't leave the concert singing the music video, guys. Like, you got to have great songs. And if you're more concerned with your appearance, which everyone is these days with social media, like, what does it matter? You can have the coolest music video in the world, and if the song is absolute garbage, then what's the difference? Like, so we've always put the music first. We concentrate on making sure that we like the songs, we think that they're catchy, and they're bringing something that we're putting forward something from ourselves that we want to share with everyone, and the music videos have been an afterthought. This is no different. We've just apportioned more of our budget towards the music videos as a bit of an experiment, and it's one of those things that's so hard to quantify. How do I know that you watched a music video and then bought a t-shirt and did this and did that? It's very difficult to integrate the conversion metrics across different platforms because everyone's pretty siloed. But, it's one of those things that zoom out on not on this month or last month, but on a 2 or 3 year period and see, do sales increase, do ticket sales increase? We go, okay, well, something happened in that time period, and we may as well chalk it up to music videos as being one of the contributing factors.
I always find it interesting because, you have, and I'm sure a lot of these conversations are probably very, very similar in just I'll say the stupidity of them, like grown adults having conversations about hashtags and algorithms and all these things. And I remember someone with like getting on me, they're like, you really need to focus on your hashtags on your Instagram posts. And I'm like, all right, dude, let's be real. Why are you saying that? Like, well, because Finn McKinsey told you the rule of 10 on how you do your 10 hashtags and what you do. And so you're regurgitating like the shit you heard from him. And I go, because let me ask you this question. Have you ever clicked on a hashtag? And everyone I've ever asked goes, no. And I go, do you follow one? And they go, no. And I go, so why are you doing it if you yourself don't do these things?
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that the internet's great for, is spreading information. And sometimes that information isn't necessarily vetted correctly. I do my own extensive testing here in my little office. Oh, how long have you got?
I mean, we got about 30 more minutes to go in this chat, so if you can explain it, I'd be interested, because I think this side of where we're at and you so more so than me, but like I think collectively we're all kind of in this like wild west of things, because I feel like with now the internet being what it has become, even going back to like when MySpace was kind of a good platform for bands to reach out and reach an audience beyond their local scene without, a label or distribution or whatever. It kind of allowed everyone to not be binded by their, regional or geographical location at that point. People could find out about music from all over the place by clicking a button, seeing who was in someone's top 8, hearing a song on a profile or whatever. And I feel like, the same sort of has happened for podcasting, is that it's still new. Like it's a 15-year, 17-year-old thing. But for the most part, in the mainstream, it's really only been, I'd say, maybe in the last 7 to 10 years that like people know what a podcast is or what it can be. But we're all still figuring it out, and the dynamics of what it is or what it's capable of keep changing. You know, at this point, with Joe Rogan signing that giant ass contract with Spotify, it showcases that a podcast can be where most people get information instead of the news now, or like your dedicated news sites and so forth. And I feel like bands are probably equally looking to things as podcasts or whatever. Twitch, you know, now you could be a gamer, you could play, and you could show your songwriting process or whatever, that people can get more into you and your band versus having to solely rely on a label and their distribution and their rollout plan for an album over the next 4 months. Like, I think we kind of exist in this wild, wild west right now, and I don't think anyone really has the answer. I think we're all just kind of making it up as we go, and some people are finding success and others are floundering, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people definitely try to force things. I'm not like a great personality to host a podcast. I have no desire to host a podcast, but say that I thought that this was the way forward and I started trying to do one and start looking for hashtags and things to try and make it work. It's like, at the end of the day, it's the personality that's going to win. Like, I don't think that there's any actor or movie that I've seen where I've enjoyed it more or less because a hashtag led me there. You know, I'm buying in at an emotional level. Do I like this person? Do I trust their performance? Is it authentic? Is it convincing? There are so many different things, and the same with a band, the same with a podcast host. It's you're buying in on an emotional level with that person, not on the marketing. The marketing, I think that the talent sets the potential, and then the management of that determines how close to that potential it reaches. I think a lot of people think they can manage themselves into or out of anything, and it really depends on the prime mover first to set that potential. In terms of testing, I mean, it is a world market now. That being said, there are still very distinct geographical, demographic differences. It's pretty common that a band or a record label will just roll out a merchandise range and a bunch of vinyl and go, here it is, and put the same stuff in every store. We analyze like what designs, what colors, and what artists even sell better in different territories and make adjustments for that. So you'll notice that our merchandise spreads between the North America, Europe, and Australia are generally pretty different. And those are tailored. It comes also down to our social media strategy, what time we post, what content we post, what captions we use. We don't really ever use any hashtags, and we've got one of the most successful social media followings in metal. So it just comes down to doing your own testing and stop listening to people on the internet. You know, we spend a large amount of money on marketing and advertising, and we're running tests constantly because that's how you get the most effective spend.
I think it's interesting to hear that. First of all, as someone, I actually just recently sold my vinyl collection because I wanted to make a smarter financial decision for myself and get out of a loan a couple of years early so I could set myself up for different financial things down the road. But it was one of those things, like, I have noticed for bands that don't exist here in the States that a lot of times, like, there does seem to be more of an emphasis put on your North American store, your, you know, European, whatever, your different geographical locations of where these things are going have different merch bundles. And I don't know if I have noticed that from bands that are here in the States, because I don't know if it's as much of an important thing to understand that, like, if you don't live here in the States, you just assume like we are the biggest thing. I feel like it's a mentality that
America is the world. I
think so.
As from the band members themselves to people that are supposed to be as smart as the managers and the booking agents, don't understand that there's other territories to be serviced. And one thing that blows my mind is they don't understand that the rest of the world is on a different time zone. It is insane the amount of people that call me at 2:00 in the morning all the time. And they're just like, hey, I'm go, no, wrong time. Like, you know what? It's also a different day. We're a day ahead of you. So it's the wrong day for this phone call. So, you know, people get too in their head thinking about themselves and where they're at. And it's, you know, it's very important to consider where you're trying to distribute your music to. I have 3 work days every day of my life. In the morning, I'm doing American stuff. From lunchtime onward, I'm working in Australia. And then around dinner time, I begin another 4 to 6 hour workday for Europe. So it's important to understand that they are 3 different places and they require 3 different tailored approaches.
Well, I think like I got a taste of that working for actually I'm back there now as of the last like 2 months. But I worked for a screen printing company that a lot of times would deal with companies that are out west. So a 3-hour time difference for us. And the thing that used to kill me is, you know, I grew up in the East Coast initially. Now I live in the Midwest. And, you know, like I said, we deal with a lot of West Coast companies and they want photo approval before we run a design, which makes sense. But it's crazy that like we'll have something ready to go within the first 30 minutes of us being open. So we start our day at 6 o'clock in the morning and it's 6:30 and they're like, well, we can't do anything for 3 hours because no one will be awake over there right now. And it's like, no, fuck that. You should be available for us because this is your product and you want it very quickly. So get on the fucking phone and go. Cause like, that's stupid. Like
that's so American, you know,
I think that's like
my time. You work in my position where you're on different days. It's like you learn patience and you also learn to be ahead of schedule. So you have the time to wait for someone else to wake up. It's very rare that I'm picking up the phone and calling someone at 4 o'clock in the morning saying you need to do this now. It would happen less than once a year. So, I don't know. That's my bit about time zones.
Well, I would,
you know,
what was that?
It can be frustrating, but as long as you plan ahead, then you shouldn't encounter too many issues.
I would ask this question, just given what little bit of what you just said and kind of, again, inferring very quickly a personality type, but like, are you someone who outside of the band maybe? Because I would assume this job, like the band is your full-time job at this point. Mm-hmm. Like you don't have another job. Was there a time when the band wasn't your full-time job and you were working a more quote unquote traditional 9 to 5? Were you someone that was more in a management type role in these jobs that you had? Because I feel like you are someone that will get in there and take over.
I never really had any normal jobs. I was the captain of my high school and the captain of the football team. So I think you do learn like some leadership skills early on in life, you know, particularly through team sports. But no, I never had any crazy. I had, I don't know, maybe over 50 different jobs just temporarily. I went to uni and then I started doing the band thing, had a recording studio, and I just worked odd jobs here and there to fund ultimately the bigger dream.
It just seems like sometimes when talking, like listening to you, it almost sounds sort of like me where it's like right now I'm a week ahead pulling because I make the ink and pull the inks for all the jobs that we're making. Tomorrow will be a full week that I've been ahead of everybody. And so instead of just fucking off, like now, since I've only been in my job for the last like month and a half, I have time to go through our whole ink catalog, find like why, like it's like, why do we have 3 buckets of this one ink and they're all barely full? I'm going to consolidate them, make sure they all match tone and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to just go through the entirety of like the 900 different types of inks that we have in different colors and figure that all out. And like, I'm in the 300s right now out of like 900. And so I'm going through and figuring all that out, cleaning all the buckets, getting my area organized in the way that it needs to be so it can be more efficient. And I've had a handful of people go like, I worked at the job like 10 years before that in shipping and receiving and so forth and doing pretty much everything other than the job I have now. And it's funny that everyone's like, we've had so many people back here since you've been gone and no one has undertaken this and just like quickly been like, this is how this can be ran more efficiently. This is how this can be done. And it's like, well, it just makes sense to do this way. Like, why wouldn't someone? Because like, it's just more of a pain in the ass and more time consuming to do it the other way. So why not take ownership and just fucking be productive and kill it? And like, it's hard because like part of me just wants to fuck off, but it's also like, this is what needs to be done. Take pride and ownership of your job. And I think that you will see better results as a result of it because you will understand it.
100%. A lot of people are super reactive in their life, which is an emotional, it's just your nervous system responding to things. I like to try and take a more proactive approach where you're not, just cramming and reacting at the last minute. You have time to intellectualize your choices as opposed to just having an emotional response.
I think that's I don't know, again, kind of beating a dead horse like I always do with this, but I think it's so important for those to understand like the different facets of what it does for you. But therapy, like that was like my big thing with therapy was I overthought so much. Like I would try to solve 30 what if scenarios that none of them, the first one never happened. So the other 29 don't matter either. Yeah. And it's funny once you kind of unburden yourself from the idea of, well, I need to be prepared for a million different what if scenarios. It's like, no, focus on what you can handle right now, move forward. And then when something happens and you need to react to it, focus on that and then deal with it. And then when that's done, move forward. And it has been incredible over the last 2 years of seeing how day to day those little things will happen. I'm like, man, pre-therapy me would have been freaking the fuck out right now over this because I would be trying to do way too much. And I feel like it has made me infinitely more streamlined and more productive in a more conducive manner to just not wasting output.
That's awesome to hear. One of the best things you can do is block out the noise. There's a lot of noise now with smartphones and social media, so just ignore it.
I think as I get older, I don't think I didn't look to see how old you were, but being almost 40 myself, it's like I'm getting to the point where it's like if I could get rid of my social media, I probably would. Like my wife doesn't have Facebook anymore. I took it off my phone because I need it for the podcast socials. But it is interesting to see now how in our day-to-day lives, like if we go to the bar, we're hanging out with friends and they'll be like, did you see? And we're like, nope, I did not. And it's so nice. It's so nice to like just be like, whatever you're going to say, it doesn't impact me. I don't give a fuck.
People think I'm crazy because I don't know about all these things that they know about. Oh, did you see that this singer did this? Or did you see that this movie started? I go, I don't know and I don't care. Like, why do I need to dedicate my time to thinking about that? There's other things to do. Just keep your head down and focused on the task. And I think it's a big one in the creative industry. It does take a lot of effort to funnel into a record, for sure, and a lot of people, really drain themselves in the output of an album. But having the ability to focus over time, record to record, tour to tour, is the real stamina. So, I don't have time in my day to focus on other things. It's like making Thy Art Is Murder continue tomorrow, the next year, the year after, is where I devote my energy. And people are like, oh, that's so crazy. I go, to me, it doesn't feel crazy. I'm working on it every day. Like, aren't you doing the same thing for the thing that you say that you love more than anything? Like, that's what it takes. It's not all luck. There's a lot of luck, but there's also just not even hard work. Just focus. Remaining focused is the main one, I think.
I think what's been crazy in the few instances, and this will kind of correlate to a different question I wanted to ask, just because for as much as I don't like social media, by and large, I do find it interesting when certain things happen from more of I would say maybe a personal or maybe even like a social perspective. So something that's interesting to me, like talking to Adam from Lorna Shore right after the CJ thing happened. And I was like, something that I found interesting is it's like, dude, like you guys busted your ass after losing your previous vocalist. Now you put out this record. It's really fucking good. And then it all just gets taken away and you had nothing to do with what's happening. Like you have no hand in it. It wasn't you. So what does it look like when you see something like all your hard work go down the shitter through no fault of your own? Like, what does that look like? Because to me, again, from a outsider's perspective, it's just, I don't know how I'd mentally handle that. Like I feel like I would just scream from the rafters, like, I didn't fucking do this. This has nothing to do with me. Like, why are you trying to cancel me too? Like, I didn't do this. and the idea of guilty by association. Now, adversely, there's more interesting kind of fun versions of this, like when I got to talk to Isaac from Kubla Khan, and some celebrity chick was in a TikTok thing where they were listening to their song or something. I don't know. So kind of talking about what does that look like when you're in, again, more of the behind the scenes stuff. Like, does a label go, oh shit, maybe we should push a single quicker than we were looking at doing to capitalize on all this eyes and attention on the band, on the product, whatever. And so I still pretty consistently between the reels on Instagram and stuff see that video of CJ, like, the chest open Michael Jackson moment. And I see it all the time. And so that was more of a viral moment, but not due to anything negative and not through a celebrity that had nothing to do with the band. That was all kind of self-contained. And so I kind of wanted to know, granted, I know it was years ago, but when that kind of was picking up steam, like, what does it look like internally for you all when you're like, holy shit, this is picking up steam? Like, it's not necessarily a song or an album or a tour, but this is a viral moment we're having because of this. What was the process like for you all?
We just think that it's funny. We don't spend much time at all thinking about things that we have no control over. Just the things that we can have a grasp on, and things that we understand and we can, manufacture. Moments like those are like great, and they're lucky. Sometimes they're a little bit frustrating. That reel of him taking his shirt off got more plays in 48 hours than any of our music videos ever get in 48 hours, by a lot. It got 2 million views in the first 2 or 3 days, which is crazy. It's like, well, can we get that kind of attention on a music video? We spent a lot of time and money on it. But again, we can't control that. CJ does crazy things from time to time, and we also can't control what the fans think is hilarious. So yeah. Going back to your Lorna Shore comment as well, like that's another interesting one. I don't know Adam very well. I know Austin, but like they had no control over that situation. What they did have control over was persisting as a band. People can say that they got lucky with TikTok and the Will Ramos breakdown weird vocal thing, but if they didn't pick up the pieces and keep going and remain focused on their band, then that opportunity wouldn't have come along. So in an element, they're creating their own luck by remaining focused and trying hard and controlling what they can control. They didn't just quit and go, well, that's it, boys, it's all over, something bad happened to us. It's like, no, they thought, what can we do to manifest the next thing? And full credit to them for it. In the same respect, we just take that approach. Like, things like that are lucky, and, maybe we'll go and edit the caption and put in a link to the merchandise store or something like that when we see things going crazy. There's not really too much that you can do to monetize content in that regard. You see this like with a lot of these not fake, I mean...
No, I think you're right.
Influencers that go and buy like 1 million followers, and it's like, that's cool. How do you make money off of that? And people have a bit of a misunderstanding. They hear about the Kardashians getting paid $500,000 to make an Instagram post posting a brand, and they go, see, these influencers are making hand over fist. It's like, no, they're not. Like, they 100% are not. There's a few of them that are making large sums of money, and those deals probably have a lot to do with other things in their life, not just their social media. It has to do with brand identity. So, yeah. It's just a bit of a misunderstanding that people think, Die Art had a viral thing, now they're going to make so much money. It's like, dude, if you can figure that out, you come and see me.
Well, it's funny because, like, I've talked about that. Like, there's been a handful of quote-unquote viral moments that the show has had, like just headlines being grabbed from the show, because that's sort of the nature of media now, where people just comb through this shit and then find something and make it a headline. And it gets interesting when that happens, because, people are like, oh my God, this must be great for you. And I'm like, so between Metal Injection, all these sites, if Alt Press, gets that far up and crossover or whatever, like between the comments, the likes, the shares, all that stuff, I go, it's almost like 1,000 to 1, the amount of like interactions that they get on social media versus actual tangible downloads of the show. And I go, So it's great because it puts my name technically out there for people to know. Like there are times when reaching out to a publicist when that's happened, like, oh my God, I've heard of your show. Yeah, we'd love to have so-and-so on your show. And it's like, oh, okay. But it does nothing for me really, like as on the other side of like where I wish it would. And I then even struggle with, would it even be worth it? Because let's say that did correlate to downloads. It's like, how many of those people actually give a fuck about what I'm doing? And they're just here because they're waiting for the next quote unquote viral thing for it to happen. Like, I don't think it's sustainable and I don't think it's long-term.
No.
Now the one thing,
music and not on the TikToks.
I will say the one thing I think that you could have done with that is something that Jamie Josta, for love him or hate him, I think if you listen to the Hard Lore episode he did, 3 hours, like I learned that dude just seems to manifest so much of his shit because he looks at the world completely differently than everybody else in the scene, and that's why they've sustained a long career, and he has done so much in his career. But I think something that he did, because like when Brody King from God's Hate and AEW did that like splash on someone at like one of the fests, they turned it into a shirt because they're like, hey, here's a viral moment, and we can actually turn it into sales for us to then put into whatever, and we can reinvest. That I was like, I could see you guys doing something like that, where you're like, here's a photo of CJ with his shirt open, and it's a shirt we're selling on our website.
Don't worry, we actually manufactured leopard print shirts. We sold them.
I must have missed that.
So we obviously do capitalize to a degree, but they're just flashes in the pan. It's like, if I put out a leopard print shirt tomorrow, would people still buy it? Maybe not. The moment would be lost. But we do what we can. But again, we can't control that. Like, what do I go? Oh, you're going to need to get like a zebra print shirt now and do that, and then we'll sell that. Like, no, these things aren't always repeatable and not controllable. It was a hot day. It was windy. He thought of it in the moment and did it. And I don't know. I think that's why people gravitate towards moments like that. They just go, that's just a man living his best life, just in the moment.
Again, in the moment.
I love it. So
I just always think it's, like I said, it's interesting to kind of see, and kind of in talking to you now over the last like 45 minutes or so, you seem to be someone who has a pretty good understanding of what you want to do, how to kind of best navigate it as much as you can. And so to me, it's like, what did that moment look like for you guys? Like behind the scenes where you're just like, oh shit, this is really popping off.
No, it didn't look like anything. We were on tour. We were on a bus somewhere in bloody Slovakia with no internet service. So we just put the video online, and then, a couple of days later we go, oh, that went pretty crazy. Cool. What do we care? Like, go and listen to the music. That's what. If all of a sudden there was so many people listening to our music on Spotify, we'd go, oh, this is amazing. The actual product that we spend our time and effort on, not like, oh, cool. People know that Australians like opening their T-shirt when it's hot. Cool, like, that's great, but it's not what we're there for primarily. So, but that being said, moments like that do help. For sure, bring fans to the table. They understand that it's a heavy band, but also we're trying to have fun with it.
I think that's something that, like, in the last handful of years, I feel like I don't want to say the mystique because it sounds so pretentious, I guess, for lack of a better term. But I feel like I do love that it seems like it's becoming kind of more widely known that, like, we all love heavy music and aggressive music, but we also don't really take it or ourselves too seriously a lot of times. Like, it's like, yes, what I'm doing, I'm proficient at what I do, and I honed my craft, but like, I'm here to have fun, and this is fun, and like, it's not that serious. Like, and I enjoy that. Like, I mean, like, I was at a thing I like doing when I go to different shows is I'll usually wear the opposite of what I'm there to see. So if I'm there to see metal, I'm going to wear a pop shirt. I'm going to wear a rap shirt. I'm going to wear something else. And it's always funny that, like, one of my go-to shirts recently has been my Jewel shirt I got at a show a couple years ago. And everyone's like, that's a fucking cool shirt. And I'm like, yeah, it is. That's why I'm wearing it. And that's why I bought it. And I like the fact that it seems like now people are willing to be like, yeah, I don't listen to death metal all fucking day, every day. Like, I listen to other shit, and we can appreciate other art, other forms of whatever, and it's fine.
And it seems like that's what's kind of needed right now. I kind of like the fact that it seems like we're kind of getting out of our own way and it's not gatekeeping as much.
Yeah. I think your personality, you just have to show what it is too. I love scary bands coming from the world of black metal. I love Behemoth and what they do to their live show. You can't really imagine Nurgle making a whole bunch of jokes and pissing in a bin on the side of stage like at a festival. It would maybe destroy the illusion and all of that. I'm not saying that he's not a funny guy in his private life, but when you go to see a Behemoth show, you know what you're there for.
Yeah.
And maybe that has to do with their personality, but our personalities aren't aligned with that. So trying to introduce an element of scariness to the live show is a little bit contrived, and we prefer to let the music do the talking in that respect. And the other important thing I think to realize is when we're putting on a show, we're not just playing the music. Like if that was the case, then everyone buy a ticket, come down, I'll put the CD on, and we'll have a beer and we'll just sit there and listen to it. But like we're creating an experience, we're trying to create a memory for someone, and we're also trying to sell them not the music. I mean, they're at the show, we've sold them the music. Now we're like trying to convert and sell them on the dream. Like, this is fun. You're here to have fun. We're here to have fun and make sure that you have fun. And that's what it's about at that point in time. And if that happens to be that CJ is funny and we're all having a good time and Sean and I drank a few too many Jamesons during the show and we're going to make some weird noises and mistakes on our guitars, that's funny, you know? But again, if you're there to be like real serious and see a Behemoth show and be like scared, that's another thing. It's like some people like horror, some people like comedy. The Art is Murder, we're very lucky that the music is serious, but somehow we are not. And it works. I don't think it is a thing that every band could make work, you know? Like, it's just the Australian way. We're all laid back and pretty funny, and that's how we do the shows. We're not going to try and be something that we're not.
It's funny. I'll kind of say these things and I'll have you kind of wrap up the episode because I know you got to go. It's funny because I've been talking with Matt from King Parrot because they're about to actually, I think they're over here right now, but they're going to do a headlining date here in Michigan in a couple weeks. And so I was joking. I was like, you motherfucker, like, you're going to make me burn a day off just to come fucking see you on a Monday so I can take Tuesday off because, like, I got to drive a couple hours to go see you guys and all that. And he goes, yeah. He goes, come fucking hang out. Like, it's a Monday. Who gives a shit? Fuck your boss. Yep. And it's funny because, like, I remember seeing that band and hearing them, and I was like, oh, this is interesting and different. But it's funny because, like, when you hang out with all of them, especially, like, Slats, and I'm speaking about them from, like, 10 years ago when they last toured the States, and they ended up staying with me. And I know a handful of the guys now are sober, so, like, I'm sure everything will be kind of a little bit different. But it's a thing where it's like, oh, you guys are just fun, having a good time, like, it's whatever. And I just, again, it kind of was one of the first times it made me realize, like, sometimes, like, this shit isn't as serious or deep as it needs to, like, the music is, but everything else is not. And kind of speaking to that in a different capacity, you know, going to a lot of different shows, going to hip hop, going to pop music, going to, like, all kinds of different shows. I had this epiphany, like, probably about a year or so ago, where I went to go see some, like, metal show. And I was just like, oh, I fucking needed that. Like, I needed to let out this aggression. I kind of, like, it was a cathartic moment for me. And I go, I think this is why I've always really enjoyed this style of music, because it has more of a release than any other genre of music. Like, you go to a pop show and it's fun and you're having a good time. You might be dancing, you might be singing. It's more positive, quote unquote. But I don't really feel like I've like, something has happened that I needed to get rid of something, like that outlet. And it almost feels sort of like a gym where it's like, I'm sweaty, I fucking sang, I have no voice, like, you know, my body hurts, but it was all worth it because, like, I got whatever out I needed to that show that day. And to me, it's like, it's the thing that always will bring me back to it, because I don't think I get that. I definitely know I don't get that any other outlet. And I think that's why the fandom from either you as the performer, you know, the creator of it, us as the fans, whatever, I think that's what keeps us coming back, because we get something inherently out of it that we can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's why we keep making albums. there's something that we get in that process. You know, I mean, we're the luckiest ones, like more so than the fans. Like the enjoyment of making a record with your friends. You know, we're making something out of nothing. There's no music, and then it goes into your brain, and then you put it on a guitar and a drum kit, and CJ screams, and you go, "Oh, now there's music!" Like crazy. Is one of the most enjoyable things that you can do in your life. And then we get to make music videos and, you know, pretend to be little movie stars for a couple of days here and there. And then we get to go on tour and travel the world and share it with people. It's, you know, it's pretty awesome. And the stress that it brings is like equally relieved from other areas of your life through the creative process and getting those ideas out. I mean, I haven't been to therapy, you have, and I imagine there's a lot of things that you carry with you until you let them out. And once they're out, they're gone for you know, maybe for a while or maybe for good. We get to purge these dark ideas that we have and commit them to a record. And then we don't have to think about them anymore, and you carry yourself a little bit lighter, encounter a few more stresses in the coming years, and then make another album about that, you know, and then you go on tour and you get to have that physical release in the performance and knowing that you made something that a lot of people want to share with you by coming to a concert or listening to your records. It's pretty sick feeling.
Well, I would love to keep talking with you. There's a handful of other things I would love to discuss, but you got another one of these afterward. So where can everyone find you or anything you would like to plug online?
Hey, if you want to get the new album, Godlike, out September 15th, go to www.theiartismurder.net. The person that owns .com keeps trying to sell it to me for 25 grand, so I've been telling them to get fucked. No one else is going to buy it. What are you going to do? You're not The Art Is Murder. But yeah, go over there. You can buy merch, vinyl, pre-order it, and catch some tour dates. Hopefully see everyone in the next 9 months.
Yeah, I'm hoping for a US date. I feel like I saw one, or someone was hinting that there is probably one being announced soon-ish.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, but hopefully when you guys come over here, you'll have I would assume it'll probably be more of a Detroit date than anything, since you'll probably hit A markets instead of a B market where I live.
Where do you live? Pontiac?
No, I live in Grand Rapids, so I'm right between Chicago and Detroit.
Oh, okay.
So we are a B market sandwiched right in between two A markets, unless someone goes to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and plays Pierre's, which is equal distance from Detroit to me. But all that said, hopefully you guys, you don't want to go back there?
No, that place is crazy. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Give me the board Chicago or give me something in Detroit, but no, not Fort Wayne, please. Sorry.
Well, hopefully, no, you're good. Hopefully, if you guys come around the States, we'll link up, have some Jameson, and maybe do another one of these or something, if you're game.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day. Looking forward to everyone hearing the record, and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
So that was my conversation with Andy. I want to thank him again for taking the time and chatting. Again, the new record, Godlike, comes out September 15th via Human Warfare. You can still pre-order the record. It's kind of why I wanted to get this episode out, so you still have time to pre-order it and support the band. A lot of cool. Actually, I think the album artwork is really sick and makes for really great vinyl, like a vinyl album cover, but also obviously with the merch bundles, the sweatshirts, t-shirts, and so forth, just makes like a great looking album cover to wear. Sometimes it's interesting when thinking about merch of different kinds. Sometimes album covers do not work, but this is not one of them. I think it looks fucking sick. Something kind of as well I've been thinking about, actually. Sometimes in doing this show, I kind of get these thoughts about how I'm like, am I having enough, more aggressive music on the podcast? With a name like Brutally Speaking, I think that does kind of evoke a certain level of guest that's on. I think I've actually, in the last couple of weeks, we've kind of been dipping back into some of the more extreme metal realms. obviously with having Jacob from Chamber on this episode, and in a couple of weeks, you'll get to hear the episode I did with Scotty and Lewis of Carnifex. Their new record rips, by the way. Getting to have the guys in Caskets on, so, you'll hear that in a few more weeks. But it's a thing where it's kind of funny, like, I've been thinking a lot about, because I've actually, as I've been talking about on the show quite a bit, rediscovering and being a fan of music. And so really spending the time and listening to some of the records as they're coming out, or I should say before they come out, which is the perk of, doing this show. And it's funny because sometimes I go through these bouts where I'm like some of these bands, some of the genres just get so formulaic, and you're like, this band just sounds like every other band that's out right now. And then sometimes, like, I'm reminded of, a band pushing everything. Like, Carnifex has been around for like 20 years almost. And to hear them still pushing the boundaries of what they do and still incorporating new ideas, themes, concepts, and so forth. Like, it's interesting, and it keeps me excited to hear it. Black Dahlia, they're still going on. It has me intrigued to see now the new growth and evolution of that band without Trevor, and how they're going to keep going on, which kind of reminded me of, I see, Aaron Pauley from Of Mice and Men, thinking about that band and how, they were kind of known when they had Austin as the vocalist, and now, Aaron has kind of become his own frontman. It's a totally different band. So kind of thinking about just a lot of these bands, newer and older, that are kind of putting out interesting music, seeing someone like Knock Loose who's progressing the genre in interesting new ways, Code Orange doing what they're doing, and we're only, I think, 2 singles into their new record, but it seems like they've kind of found what they've been trying to go after for the last little bit, mixing, more of that 90s alternative sound with kind of more of even the 90s, like, metal and industrial. Newer bands like, Gideon and Chamber and Thy Art Is Murder, and like, there's so many great bands in the heavy spectrum right now that just have me excited, and just dropped a new fucking EP that's coming, or a full length, actually, I take that back, a full length that's coming out soon. And like, just the state of heavy music is exciting, and it's fun, and it's kind of got me feeling like I did being a kid, where it's like, or younger, I should say, not a kid, but just excited about the heavy thing, and like, oh my god, did you hear this fucking riff? Did you hear this vocal? Did you hear this thing? Like, it's kind of fun just to be a fan again. And heavy music sometimes is something that I am bad at, kind of feeling like it's formulaic and it's just all the same shit. But I'm here to kind of say now, while I'm sitting here today, after listening to a lot of these records, there's a lot of great fucking heavy music out, and I feel like it's a very interesting time to see what happens. I mean, fucking Billie Eilish was listening to It Dies Today. Still not over that. That's kind of incredible to see. But I think speaks to, these viral moments that this underground scene that we all love eventually gets love and adoration from so many different walks of life. You never really know who listens to this, but all that said, I'm going to start kind of wrapping up this episode because the intro was kind of long and all that. But if you'd like to about Thy Art Is Murder, you can just simply go to thyartismurder.net. That is the landing page for everything, tours, all of that. If you'd like to keep up with them on their socials, though, it's in the show notes below of whatever you're listening to this on. But Facebook is Thy Art Is Murder, Instagram is Thy Art Instagram, and Twitter is Thy Art Is Murder. If you'd like to keep up with Andy, you can follow him at Still Up So Cut. Again, that's all in the show notes. And, just want to thank him again for taking the time. Go pick up the new record. It absolutely rips. And, obviously the band's success of how this, album does, obviously directly correlates to getting on better tours, just and all that kind of stuff. I wish it wasn't really that thing. I mean, I'm hoping maybe that the landscape of the music industry doesn't just solely focus on first week numbers for impact of touring opportunities, but chances are that is still going to be a thing. Ironically, I was just reading an article about a person who was pretending, or I guess he wasn't pretending, worked for a booking agency management company and was just fucking scamming bands out of money. So it's still a reminder that the touring industry is kind of fucked in some capacities, and the industry, there are people in it who will still take advantage of you. So the more things change, they don't. If you'd like to keep up with myself over here, simple enough, Bruce Speak Pod on all your major social media platforms. I'm not adding any of these new things. I think I'm still probably searchable on TikTok, but I deleted that fucking app like forever ago. I don't have threads. I'm not anything. Pretty much at this point, if something dies out and it's not Facebook, Instagram, or what was Twitter, if everything keeps moving forward and becoming a new thing, I'm probably just not going to be on it. You can take that however you want. You could say that's a stupid move on my part. I honestly just am getting so disinterested in social media. I just don't care. All of that to say, if you would like to send me an email, you can send me an email for guest suggestions, comments, whatever. Brewtallyspeaking@gmail.com. If you would like to rate, review, and subscribe, you know why that's important for the algorithms and all that kind of stuff would be greatly appreciated. The only way this show grows is through word of mouth. I spend no money on advertising. I kind of pride myself on the fact that all the success the show gets is 100% DIY and organic. And I also want to thank, at this point, my podcast sponsors for not only just being rad businesses, but being rad people behind the scenes as well. So head on over to Rockabilia, use our code BREW10 at checkouts, and take 10% off your total purchase order. Huge shout out to Frankie and the crew over at Rockabilia and Andy over at Starving Artist Brewery. These are people individually and as businesses and so forth that are just major inspirations. I say it all the time about how I try to surround myself with people that inspire me and make me want to continue to do something and push the boundaries and grow and all of those kind of things and find success. And those people are no different. Something I want to kind of do a little bit differently here at the end before I sign off. I want to kind of start giving props, gratitude. I've been seeing a lot of sober people that I follow, like Jacoby Shaddix of Papa Roach. Mark from Lamb of God does it on Twitter every Sunday. There's a lot of artists who post their gratitude lists. And I think it's important because I think in light of how sometimes things can feel so negative and downtrodden, it's good to have a reminder for yourself of the good things in your life on a week-to-week basis or even a day-to-day basis, whatever it needs to be for you. And I've been thinking a little bit more about it, and I think it would be great to do for the podcast, kind of give some people some shine as well. So first of all, I want to, extend a major debt of gratitude to the Atom Splitter PR team, Amy, Shane, Tim. Those are mainly the people I deal with almost on a daily basis. They probably are accountable for 75 to 80% of the guests that come on this show. They are an incredible team and people that I interact with almost daily. And someone like Amy is someone who I consider a friend outside of just the professional setting, and great people. So I want to shout them out. You can follow them on different socials as well. Also want to shout out some podcasts that I think keep me on my toes and kind of keep me inspired. I want to start off with Daniel Terry and the DFT Dungeon podcast. Season 3 just started. I will be back on that season soonish. The episode will post whenever that does. Daniel is someone I've known for a while, obviously with him being on this show, and more importantly, is an inspiration to kind of, if you're not happy with something, to change. Not only for him professionally, but also personally. And it's something that I think just showcases and shines through in the new show, and it's hard not to identify with that show since it's about rediscovering music and kind of your why and how music is a parallel to teaching moments and core memories and so forth. And it's a great show, and I think more people need to have eyes and ears on it. I want to shout out Dewey and the Pure Pleasure podcast. Again, someone who just does the thing and kind of does it very akin to me, where it's sort of a very wanting it to be a natural, organic thing, and the belief in the medium and it's what it's capable of. Was listening to his episode today with Richard Patrick from Filter, and that was a wild, fun chat, and kind of getting to vicariously live through some of these experiences he has is rad. And lastly, I want to shout out Mark Volelunga from Nothing More. This past weekend, he linked me and a mutual friend of his together because they were here in town for some business on a festival that was happening here a couple of minutes from my house. We ended up linking up, Chad and I, who works for Till Right Love on Our Arms and tours with a few various bands, but we linked up Sunday night, had some beers, got to know each other, and I'm just kind of reminded of and grateful for Mark's friendship between Chad and I, and then putting us together thinking that we would be good to hit it off. So to kind of finalize my first episode where I do kind of a gratitude list, just want to thank those people for what they do and what they provide for me, and the motivation to continue to do this thing, and just thankful. So until next time, I am John, and next week's episode is with Blake from Saul. Speaking kind of the story I just told about Mark and Chad, it was a fun chat, and it's funny because I feel like Blake and I probably should know each other based on how many people we mutually know, like on a personal level. So it was pretty rad getting to know him and talking about the new record of theirs and all that. But you'll get to hear more of that next week. I will talk to you then. Enjoy the rest of your week.